Hi everyone, it's Will. So I think looking a little ridiculous because this scarf is so much thicker than the sweater, and my head is kind of encased. I don't know. Anyway, vanity. There are much more important things to think about today. So I'm sad, and if it's not too pretentious to say it, I weep for the future. And if you watched the previous video, you'll know why that is, and I'm not going to say more. I'm also sad to a lesser degree that this is the last diary entry from 1907. I console myself that we have the letters that go from 1908 to 1914. So fortuitously for us at any rate, Dmitri's sister gets married in the spring, and then he starts writing to her. So we have those letters. But for the moment, this is the last 1907 diary entry, and the next one we will be returning to 1921, and I didn't like leaving things for so long. Now we have a considerable gap between what we were talking about in 1921, and now we have to resume that after having left it quite a while ago, and pick up that train of thought. But anyway, since this is the last diary entry for 1907, I thought I would bring something special, though it's not relevant to 1907. This is an enameled cup with a gilt edge. There you see, quite a nice thing, although these were mass produced and they were meant for the common people and the peasants. So any of you who are Romanov aficionados will recognize it. The date is 1896. The cipher is NA, so Nikolai Alexandrovich with the crown over it, and the Romanov double-headed eagle on the back. And so these are referred to, well, individually as the cup of sorrow, because they were given out as largesse to the, supposed to be to the common people in Moscow, and the peasants streamed in from the countryside for the big event of Nicholas II's coronation, and these were going to be distributed. But the field where they had set up the festivities for the common people was intersected with ditches, and a rumor started that there weren't enough of these cups for everyone to get one, and there was a stampede. And I think more than 1,000 people were killed. I mean, they were trampled to death, which is horrific. Hence the names of the cups, cups of sorrow. And there are still some floating around. I'm told that nowadays a person has to be cautious because there are a lot of fakes. This one, oddly enough, I found in an antique store in Seattle, and way back in the 80s when I was at the University of Washington. It's definitely authentic. I've had people look at it, but it's not in good shape. So you can see the inside and the top, the enamel is being eaten away, but that's okay. I think I like it a little more for that. Clearly the person who got it treasured it and didn't get trampled to death, and hopefully none of his or her relatives got trampled to death, and somehow it ended up probably after the revolution in Seattle. So there was a big migration to San Francisco, from Shanghai to San Francisco, and one of the people who went that route through the Far East to the Pacific Northwest and California was, in fact, Laming's son. That was Dmitri's little buddy for a while, and now that Dmitri is 16, doesn't seem to be anymore, unfortunately. But and he was about 10, so the age gap, not chronologically but in other ways, had widened. But anyway, Grand Duke Sergei was, rightly I think, blamed for what happened. He was the Governor General of Moscow, and he arranged things very badly, and this whole thing could have been avoided. And it was a black stain against him and against the dynasty, and more importantly, against Nicholas II, because Nicholas II was persuaded by his uncles and by Sergei to attend the festivities that same evening. The French embassy gave a big, glittering, glamorous ball, and Nicholas and Alexandra went to that. And yeah, it was callous on their part. I don't doubt that they felt deeply the tragedy and the horror of what had happened, but they didn't respond to it in a way that showed that to the common people effectively. And so that was a big black mark right at the beginning of the reign, when people already were superstitious and saw ill omens with respect to Nicholas's accession to the throne, because they said that Alexandra came into the country following a casket, because she came right after Alexander III's death, and I guess was in the funeral procession, literally following the casket in a carriage or something. I don't know. My friend Janet Ashton would know about that. And because Nicholas was born on May 6th on the old Julian calendar, which is the feast day of the patriarch Job, the sufferer. So Russians, being superstitious folk, all of that was taken to see, was held against him, that he was going to bring hard years to Russia. Okay, anyway, so the diary entry is a very short one, although not without interest. And we can see how busy Dmitri had become, and that it's really not surprising that he took a break from diary writing, and maybe he intended it to be a short break, but he just wouldn't catch up with it again until 1915. Maybe earlier, but if that's the case, those diary volumes didn't survive, and my friends in Russia have not found diaries for the years after 1907 in the archive there, and apparently Dmitri didn't manage to get them out of the country, if indeed there were some. So they're not in Russia. They didn't make it to his son, whom he left the diaries to. So yeah, it's one of the gaps we have in the diaries, and we don't know why. If he kept, if he stopped writing completely, or not. But as I say, they resume in 1915, and in between we have these letters. So let's dive in. It's 18th October in 1907 in Moscow. It's a Thursday, and on the Wednesday, Dmitri and Maria and Vilgashka, Prince Wilhelm, had all gone to the theater to see a Russian opera called Sadko. And I think so far all the operas that they've gone to have been Russian operas. There were two by Tchaikovsky, and so apparently that was the season in Moscow that year. They were not showing, or either they weren't doing any Western operas, or Dmitri and Maria didn't go to them. But the Sadko was at the Bolshoi, and so the equivalent of the Royal Opera House in England, or the major opera house in any big city. Okay, here we go. I got up at 8:30, but then had coffee with Tjotja, after which I was supposed to take a walk with GM until 11 o'clock. But the weather was so bad that it was impossible to stay out for long, and we quickly returned home. From 11 to 1, Maria and I had geography. What a bore that class is. It's just terrible. Lunch was at 1, after which I had lessons until 6. After that, I developed photos until dinner time, and after dinner, we just sat around doing nothing. Tomorrow, we're going to the theater to see Eugene Onegin, to show it to Vilgashka. GM was feeling poorly today, so he didn't even have dinner with us. And tomorrow, Cook will take a walk with me instead of him. 10:30. Okay, so very short. He gets up late because he was out late the evening before and didn't go to bed till after midnight. And so he gets up at 8:30. Tjotja Aunt Ella usually has her coffee, her morning coffee, at 8 o'clock, but apparently she was kind enough to delay it so that she could have it with Dmitri. It's never clear if Maria and Vilgashka and other members of the household are joining her, because Dmitri always uses the singular verb ending. I had coffee with Tjotja instead of we had coffee with Tjotja, but I don't want to read too much into that. I think probably the others were there. Okay, so the walk didn't work out because the weather was so bad. Then there was the geography class, and Dmitri didn't enjoy it. And I think he enjoyed one of his geography classes back in 1906, but this time he doesn't. And, you know, a teacher can make a big difference as well. And it's interesting that that it's a joint class with the two of them. And so she's not completely finished with her education. She won't be married until the spring, I think April. And so, you know, she still has time to polish things off a little bit. And so that's good. You know, she's only 17 years old. And then lunch, and then lessons until 6. His lessons are usually over by tea time, and then maybe for 1 hour after tea, which was at 4. But yeah, he goes to until 6 today. And then he's developing photos, his preferred hobby these days, and sitting around doing nothing. But tomorrow, the Friday, they always seem in the past to have gone to the theater or to the opera on Thursdays, but they're going to go to this one on Friday, and apparently they've seen it before, because he notes that they're going to that one in order to show it to Vilgashka. Okay, I believe have I seen that one myself? Yeah, I think I did see that one at the opera in Seattle years and years ago. Good Lord, I hope I didn't pronounce it, because I don't remember how to pronounce the last name, and I might have put the stress in the wrong place, and you'll all laugh at me. But yeah, that's a risk I'm willing to take. So yeah, and then GM isn't feeling well. It's interesting, Dmitri notes he didn't even have dinner with us. So apparently he was, always invited to dinner. You know, Dmitri took it for granted that he would be at dinner unless he was sick. So I wonder if his wife and Borya were, had dinner sort of en famille as well. Or conversely, it could be that Dmitri did not have dinner with Aunt Ella. But I think by this time, he and Maria and Vilgashka were having dinner every day. with Aunt Ella and whatever other members of the household. So it's nice that GM was included. Dmitri hasn't mentioned Miss June for quite a while, so I don't know if she's even still around. Okay, and yeah, just one other thing to note in passing, that it's interesting that he's just not really spending any time at all with Maria and Wilhelm during the day. Only in the evening at dinner and after dinner does he get a little chance to see them and to spend time with them. In this instance, of course, he had this lesson with Maria, but you know, it's not social time. The social time that he has between the end of his lessons and dinner is spent in his own rooms and doing things on his own. And so I'm not sure why that was, or what kind of activities Maria and Vilgashka were doing, if they were going out every day. Yeah, I'm curious. I wish I knew. So if you do know, fill me in. All right, my friends, so that's that, and the next video will be in February 1921, so I hope you were watching those as well, and I hope you will return for those. I guarantee you that they're very, very interesting, and the affair with Coco really blossoms in March and April. So yeah, I will see you then, hopefully. Bye.